Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. For today's video I am going to be reading through a story that I have written called Accepting Fate, and because this is quite a major creative writing project, I'm going to have to divide videos up basically for this. So for today's video we're going to be reading through chapters 1, 2 and 3, and then basically the rest will follow in another video. I do just want to quickly mention a couple of things before we get started on reading through this piece. The first one is that if you want to share this, that is absolutely fine, you're more than welcome to. All I ask is that you credit me. The second thing that I want to mention is a little warning. I'm going to be talking about miscarriage, mental health, self-harm, and just somebody really losing control of themselves, losing who they are, and not really knowing the best way forward in their lives and what's best to do in order to get themselves out of this dark hole that they've trapped themselves in. So if you feel like you're going to be triggered by any of that sort of stuff, obviously don't listen to this read through for this piece. I don't want to upset anybody by uploading this story. I just want to raise awareness. So that's actually all that I have to mention, so let's get started. Accepting Fate, chapters 1, 2 and 3 by Danielle, Jameson. Chapter 1, Life as We Know It. My heart beats louder and louder with every thump. I stare at this thin stick on the shelf in the supermarket and I think about how this tiny device could really change my life. I was not nervous, not one bit. Instead, excited. We have been waiting for this for so long, years in fact. My partner knows it's a long shot that I could ever conceive and deliver another life, but we try anyway. Consistently being faced with bad news. Negative. This time though, as I continue to stare at the other pregnancy tests on the shelves, I feel something different. My heart and gut are united. I feel like this could be the one. I reach out my hand to grab a pink pregnancy test, shaking with excitement and curiosity. In the previous times that I have gone through this somewhat grueling routine, I've felt nervous and hopeless. However, this time, I know it's something special. I stare into my partner's eyes and he nods a nod of approval at me. His usually bright blue eyes are somewhat grey, and I suddenly notice dark circles under his eyes. He's tired. He isn't thinking how I'm thinking. He isn't as positive about this time. Who can blame him? We've been doing this for so long. It's almost guaranteed that he's thinking that this is going to be just the same as all of those other times. Even the doctors have told us to give up. Maybe adopt or have a surrogate, but it's simply not the same. You see, to me, having children is the ultimate dream. Since I was a young child, I've dreamt all about having children, the late nights, the crying, all of that. This is something that I have always wanted. It's been something that has always appealed to me. Me and my partner go to the supermarket till to pay, and the lady serving us knows us well, a little too well. She almost always serves us when we make this routine trip to the shop to purchase the stick of truth and fate. Maybe this time will be the time that it happens for you too, the lady says, staring right into both of our pupils. My partner simply looks at her and slowly nods his head. He never used to be a man of few words, but this whole process seems to have changed him. Both of us has become truly obsessed with becoming pregnant and having a child or two to love and to cherish. I have a good feeling this time, Gemma. This could really be it, I explain. She smiles at me as she gives me my change and the test. I have my fingers crossed, she replies. The drive home from the supermarket was a quiet one. I stared into the side of my partner's head whilst in a daydream. Visions of my hopes and dreams of motherhood flickering around like a movie trailer. The silence in the car was never broken. It was as if we were strangers meeting for the first time. nervous to even let a word out of our mouths. After finally returning home, I immediately ripped open the pregnancy test and read the instructions. This is something I always do, despite knowing inside and out the process. Perhaps I always look at the instructions just to make sure I'm doing everything right. Or maybe it's just me putting this whole thing off because I don't want to be let down again. After doing the test, I sit and wait impatiently for 5 minutes. Me and my partner do not speak throughout the entire waiting period, and neither of us can look into each other's eyes. After waiting the required amount of time, I stand up from my bed and walk over to the chest of drawers in our bedroom where the test was sitting. My chest begins to get tight, and I am positive I'm getting heart palpitations. But I, unbelievably confidently actually, take a glance at the results, which have appeared on the stick which decides our future. I look, then I look again, unsure whether to believe my eyes of what stands before me. It was positive. I look over at my other half and excitedly tell him to come and see the stick, and a smile appears on his face as he too sees the markings on the test, suggesting that I am indeed pregnant. It was a moment I will never forget. A million thoughts flashed through behind my eyes as time seemed to slow down considerably. I had never seen a smile so wide on both of our faces for a long time. I may have even seen a tear escape from my other half. It was refreshing to see that a miracle could indeed happen. I wanted to shout from the rooftops, tell every single human in the world that I was finally gifted with a child. We had done it. Accepting Fate, Chapter 2, The Unavoidable Fate. From that moment on, as the months went by and I had numerous visits to the midwife, I knew that this was a very risky pregnancy. We both did. Not just for me, but for our unborn child. I wondered at points if we were perhaps being selfish. Were we so set on creating a life? I mean, did we not think of the possible risks? This little life inside of me, so innocent and not knowing about anything of what's going on. There will be times that I would lay in the bath and stare lovingly and longingly at my growing bump and think of all kinds of thoughts, both good and bad. And as the days went by, my state of mind drastically changed. My once bubbly, happy state had developed into a nervous, anxious, unsteady soul. I did not want to lose the baby, but something was telling me that this was unavoidable. There were devastating problems lying ahead. Of course, because he has been wanting this for so long, my partner was so incredibly overprotective and cautious of me. And I guess to some extent, so was I. But nothing could prepare us for what was to come. Chapter 3, From a Different Perspective. I saw it. I saw the news rip her to shreds as the doctor's painful words echoed throughout our ears and into our brains. The room was quiet for a second or two. Her brain was clearly struggling to comprehend the horrendous information that was just given to her. And then suddenly, it all clicked into place. She had taken in what had happened. I could pinpoint the exact moment in time her heart had broken into several pieces. I could then see the pain in her eyes as she began to look at me and tear up. I could see the lump in her throat, preventing her from speaking. She was unsure of what she should do or how she should react. They had lost her baby. Her partner George refused to attend this appointment with her, believing that the worst would happen. How on earth would she go about telling him? My mind became flustered with thoughts and information, and it was me, Gemma, whom she asked to replace George's spot next to her for this appointment. I'm just someone she connected with throughout her journey of trying to become pregnant, and then finally getting pregnant. Knowing it was my morning off of work, I of course couldn't let her go alone. She had a strange feeling something was not quite right, and her feelings were correct. I wasn't sure exactly what to do. My heart was hurting for her. I opened up my arms and embraced her in a massive hug. She still said nothing. No words came from her mouth, just gentle tears and shock. This hug was different. She usually hugged me with such positivity and hope, but this was a hug of sadness. Leaving from the hospital followed a silent and tense car ride home. I was driving, glancing over at her from time to time, wondering how she was taking the news. She sat next to me in the passenger seat, her face pale, her eyes watery and tired. She didn't make eye contact with me once. When we had arrived back at her home, George's car was strangely nowhere to be seen, and I insisted that she should not be going inside her home alone during this time of grief and stress. She unlocked the front door only to be greeted with a handwritten note from George himself. Could life get any worse for this poor woman? She is someone who had always been so caring, so nice, loving and hopeful. This was just not right. George, the monstrous man he had become since he realised his wife was highly unable to become pregnant and give him the child he so badly wanted, had left her. Just walked out. I saw her face become more upset as she read the note quietly, then simply handed the note to me without a word. I read through the note. Katie, I'm not one to walk out and give up on something I know to be incredibly special, but I need to think about myself. We used to have such a strong, successful relationship, but since we've been trying to get pregnant, things have changed for the worst. We aren't the same people anymore. You're not the same person I fell in love with. I already know we have lost the baby. I can feel it in my bones. Let's not put each other through hell anymore. Please, all my love, George. What a putrid, monstrous, selfish man, I shouted angrily at Katie, my face glowing red from anger and my eyes glaring straight into the side of her face. How could he dare do this? I had no reply. Not even a glance. Katie, please, say something, I asked, in a much more gentle and caring tone. After a few moments of silence, she turned her head to look at me, her eyes red with pain and her body shaking. Please, just leave, were the only words that escaped from her mouth, and respecting her wishes, I left her alone, in her home that afternoon, with no one to speak to about her issues or her emotions. Months followed by after the horrific news, and Katie appeared to distance herself entirely from the world. So that is it, you guys. That is chapters 1, 2 and 3 of Accepting Fate. I hope you enjoyed. Like I said, the following chapters will be coming up in another video, so if you're interested, stay tuned for that. If you like this video, make sure to leave it a thumbs up, and of course if you are new here, click on that subscribe button. If you're interested, I will link my other creative writing videos that I have done. The playlist will be linked in the description box down below, so if you want to go and check that out, of course you're more than welcome. Thank you so much for listening. I do hope that you enjoyed, and I hope to see you guys in my next video.